Regular meeting of the Judson Board of Trustees is hereby called to order at 7 p.m. I am very pleased that you've taken time to join us this evening. As the Judson Board of Trustees, we are here to set goals and policies and oversee the management of the district. We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personnel appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the state government code on open meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in public, not a meeting of the public. As our guest, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of the Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum, and I will call roll, and we will be using our new technology yes, use your button if you're present. So, Miss Eaton. Okay. Oh, you can if you want to. Miss Rodriguez. Present. Miss Pashong.
Present, and thank you for being here.
Mr. LaFoyle.
Present.
Miss Canoyer.
Present.
Mr. Macias.
Present.
Melinda Salinas, present. Does it show? Yeah, okay. And we also have Dr. Montoya, our superintendent.
And I don't have a button, but I'm here.
So bear with us as we're learning this new technology. Are we going to have invocation or no? Yes. Okay, if you'll please stand for invocation and Pledge of Allegiance.
Folks, please bow your head. Dear Lord, we thank you for having had a successful and safe school year for our staff and students. And we thank you for allowing us to have time off this summer, not only for our students, but staff and parents. And we ask that as we begin a new year and plan for next year, that you guide us to do what's right for the district and for our staff. And again, we thank you for everything. And we ask that everyone be safe as they go home tonight after this meeting. We pray to our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We don't have any recognitions tonight, so we will move on to acknowledgement of visitors and citizens to be heard. This time is provided for citizens to address the board on issues or concerns. A person may speak one time for a period of 3 minutes. Presentations shall be informative only. No board action will be taken. A complaint or charge against an officer or employee of the district is not allowed in open session. Complaints and concerns should first be addressed by campus and/or district administration. If your topic involves a personnel matter, a student matter, or if you contend that your legal rights have been violated or board policy not followed, we have specific grievance procedures, DGBA, legal and local, for these matters, and now is not the appropriate time to discuss these matters. We respectfully ask that you refrain from making personal attacks or rude or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous. The presiding officer shall determine whether a person who wishes to address the board has attempted to solve a matter administratively. If not, the person shall be directed to the appropriate policy to seek resolution before bringing the matter to the board at a subsequent meeting. Citizens wishing to receive a response from concerns presented to the board must provide written documentation. The board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of that meeting. And tonight we have Miss Marilyn McKinney from Judson Education Association, and the agenda item to be discussed is update to board policy.
Thank you. Adding to that policy, a segment granting a waiver to teachers who have been in the district for a specified amount of time. I have given you this evening my proposal. This proposal was presented to the cabinet at an earlier date, and I am now presenting it to you for your consideration. The first section, less than annual appraisal, comes directly from DNA Legal. DNA Legal essentially sets forth the statutory requirements for evaluating teachers. DNA Local effectively sets forth the operational function, how you're going to carry out the legal aspect of the policy. And so I am requesting that you operationally extend what exists in DNA Legal into DNA Local. So the essential rationale for it exists in DNA Legal, and it's verbatim in the first section. Now, the next section was kind of fun. I played with it. It's where you operationally get into the nitty-gritty. The district has been trying to figure out what incentives we might offer teachers to get them to stay. Well, offer them the incentive that you don't have to put on a dog and pony show every year for us. Because once we understand that you have a sound track record, we trust you to continue to perform at that level. And you can play with that any way you want. Yes, you can give them a 2-year waiver. You can give them a 3-year waiver. You can give them a 4-year waiver. DNA Legal says you have to be evaluated once every 5 years. So most you can do is every 4 years, you don't have to put on a dog and pony show. You can play with that part. The last part, or the next part, the third section, talks about removing people from the waiver. I think it's essential that if you have a waiver, you have written policy that sets forth what has to happen to be removed from a waiver. In the past, we have had waivers under PDOS. And what would happen was the principal in a building would change, and so the new principal would come in and say, "Oh, nobody gets a waiver because I'm new." Well, wait a minute. I have a track record of exemplary performance. Why should my track record be cast aside because you're new and you don't know anything about it? That is patently unfair. And so I've inserted protections for the teacher. Does that mean the administrator can't go into my classroom and observe? No. DNA Legal addresses that and sets forth what goes on if you have a waiver. And that's the next section. So I've presented this to you for your consideration. I hope you will give it serious consideration and set it as an agenda item in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McKinney.
Is it not working now?
She's the only
I know, but I'm trying to get this.
one. No, I'm asking.
Oh, yes, she's the only one, yes. Okay. All right, we'll move on to consideration of consent items. We will not be using our new devices for this portion. Please let me know if you'd like to pull an item. We will pull item A because we have to amend that motion. Consider and take action regarding approving board minutes from the regular meeting held on May 18th, 2017, and special board meeting on June 2nd, 2017. I'll pull that one. B, consider and take action regarding approving monthly financial information as of May 31st, 2017. 4C, consider and take action regarding approving board policy CDA Local Investments Annual Review. Okay. 4D, consider and take action regarding approving the submission of the anticipated 2017 tax collection rate as certified by the tax assessor collector for the Judson Independent School District. 4E, consider and take action regarding approving request for competitive sealed proposal 17-29, Escondido North Elementary School. 4F, consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-34, solid waste removal. 4G, consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-35 for general and instructional supplies. 4H, consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-40 for healthcare benefits administrator.
Full.
4I, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of architectural firms related to RFQ 16-07, architectural services for services related to the construction of Veterans Memorial High School, Phase 2.
Full.
4J, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking for engineering services related to RFQ 16-08, engineering services for material testing services for Escondido North Elementary School and Wortham Oaks Elementary School.
Full.
4K, consider and take action regarding approving the purchase of 3 14-passenger school buses.
Full.
4L, consider and take action regarding approving secondary student fees and CTE-related student fees for the 2017-2018 school year.
Full.
4M, consider and take action regarding approving a resolution relating to establishing the Judson Independent School District's intention to reimburse itself for the prior lawful expenditure of funds related to constructing various school district improvements from the proceeds of one or more series of tax-exempt obligations to be issued by the district for authorized purposes, authorizing other matters incident and related thereto, and providing an effective date. 4N has been pulled by administration. 4O, consider and take action regarding approving College Board's College Readiness and Success Contract.
Full.
We will be voting on item 4B, 4F, 4M. Okay. Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoille. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries 7-0. We'll go back to 4A, consider and take action regarding approving board minutes from the regular meeting held on May 18th, 2017, and the special board meeting on June 2nd, 2017. We'll need to amend that motion to only include June 2nd minutes.
I move to amend.
Ms. Pashal moves to amend, second by Mr. LaFoille. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion to amend is approved, 7-0. And now we need a motion to actually pass it.
I move we approve as amended.
Okay.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Canoyer, second, Ms. Pashal. And the item is now consider and take action regarding approving board minutes from the regular meeting, I'm sorry, from the special board meeting held on June 2nd, 2017. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. And we'll move on to B, and I believe, no, I'm sorry, C, and that was pulled by Mr. Macias and Ms. Pashal. Consider and take action regarding approving board policy CDA local investments annual review. And you can request to speak, and I will, I need to proceed. Right? What am I doing wrong? Nope. Whoop. Sorry. I was doing this one first.
Now it's a discussion.
Now we're ready? Okay. So we're discussing 4C. So now you push to talk if you would like to speak. I don't know who wants to speak. Ms. Pashal or Mr. Macias, you pull the item. Which one of you?
Pull the wrong one.
Okay, Ms. Pashal doesn't want to speak.
I withdraw. I made a mistake, Mr. Macias.
Mr. Macias, did you push it? Fabulous. Okay, Mr. Macias.
Thank you. Real simple question. I did notice on the recommendation, or I'm sorry, the impact rationale for this item, that there are no changes being proposed to the local policy. So am I understanding that we're looking to vote on this, but we're not voting to change anything? I guess I wanted to understand that a little better. I know that the rationale is out here, but can you just give me a little more detail why?
And again, members of the board, this is an annual process that we go through in this area, but Mr. Elizondo, if you want to explain that.
Yes, sir. The Texas Public Funds Investment Act requires that once a year, we present this policy to the board, the local, whether there are changes or not, just so that you have an opportunity to review it in case you have any questions about it. And that's what we're doing. And the reason there's an action item is just to memorialize that we did present it to the board, and if you all had any questions, we answered them, and that we met the requirement of the law in doing that.
I know I see hundreds of agenda items, and I don't ever remember this, but we do this annually?
They're right around this time.
Right around the same period?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just was curious. It just was interesting to say
Sure.
that we have an action item with no action. I mean, that's what it comes down to, but I understand then it's
Thank you.
a process. Thank you.
So, Mr. Elizondo, you were only going to answer our questions if we had any questions?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, we present the policy there so you can read it. And if you do have any concerns, we're definitely, or we can, well, I mean, I can tell you what it is. This policy does is it guides the school district investment officers, who are myself, the director of accounting, and one of our other accountants, as to how we're allowed to invest the funds of the school district. The majority of that are guided by the Texas Public Funds Investment Act. However, the boards of the independent school districts can restrict that investment policy even further if they like. Our policy that we adopt is the one that TASB recommends, which just makes sure that it encompasses all of the items that are allowed by the Texas Public Funds Investment Act, so that we can invest in any of those products that are admissible.
Thank you.
Sure.
No further discussion, we'll go ahead and vote. Please use your handy technology. Oh, we need a motion. Yes, 4C. Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to 4D. Consider and take action regarding approving the submission of the anticipated 2017 tax collection rate as certified by the tax assessor collector for the Judson Independent School District.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoil. We will proceed to discussion, and I believe Mr. Macias.
The documentation for this item didn't include the tax collection rate. I'm assuming it's 104, but we have, one page here or two. Is this where we would put 104, or am I totally off in left field?
It's a little bit different than that. This
Okay.
particular item is not for the members of the board to vote on the tax rate. This is just the tax assessor collector saying that she's going to certify that her goal is to collect 100% of our tax levy for the school district. So that's all that's being done here with this particular item. In order for us to do the truth in taxation advertisement that's required in the newspaper, she has to certify a tax rate to do those calculations. And so that's in accordance with the Texas Property Code. And so she's certifying that the intent is to collect 100% of what our levy is. And that's all this item is saying. Again, we had to bring it to the governing body for approval, just stating that is what our intent is.
And I guess that would be important, because when we do budgets, you're always stating we don't collect all of our taxes. It's only, but this
Correct.
is a full faith effort that we're going to try to collect 100%.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, no further discussion. We'll move to voting. Okay, we're voting on 4D. Motion carries 7-0. Move on to 4E. Consider and take action regarding approving request for competitive seal proposal 17-29 Escondido North Elementary School. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoil. And Mr. Macias, I believe you pulled that item.
Yes, ma'am. This project is still on time. I think its anticipated completion is next year. Can someone confirm?
Dr.
Yes,
Fields,
sir.
go ahead.
It's still on time. It's almost ahead of time. Its estimated completion is not next year. Or, yes, sir, it is. August of 18. Correct.
Okay. And so today, it looks like the recommendation is for jurists, general contractors?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and you went through the process. I guess, just for academics, Shatterfield was at 93.5, and so in looking at this, it was pretty close, right?
It was, sir, but the main difference between the two lowest bids was the experience factor. If
Okay.
you look at those two companies, it's night and day.
All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bishop?
Dr. Montoya, how many schools has Joris built for us?
Dr. Fields, do you have that? I know they've done some of it in the past,
I
right,
don't
or
have the
not?
exact amount. I know of one. I know they built Copperfield. I can check.
Mr.
I know-
Elizondo wants to answer.
Or
They-
was it Copperfield or Roller?
They built Copperfield. They also constructed Wagner High School. There's numerous others, but I'd
Okay,
have to go check, but they've been working with us for over the years.
thank you.
Sure.
Okay, no further discussion. We'll move to voting. Okay. Voting on 4G. I'm sorry, 4E. No, 4G, right? No? 4E, sorry. Okay. Is that right? Motion carries 7-0. 4G. Oh, excuse me. Okay, we'll get it. 4G, consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-35 for general and instructional supplies.
Second.
Motion, Mr. LaFoille, second, Ms. Canoyer, and I believe Mr. Macias. You should be first for discussion.
Thank you. Just tell me a little bit about this general and instructional supplies. Is this a shift in our typical policies, or not policies, but practices, or just to give me a little bit of history on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Elizondo.
Sure. Yes, sir. We release or solicit proposals for this particular item approximately every 4 years. And our goal is to ensure that we're adding new vendors to our list of approved vendors that we can buy from. So you'll see this item showing up in the agenda several times in the future months because we leave it open for quite a while. So we continue to have vendors respond to this particular proposal, and we'll be bringing it to the board and asking to continue adding to the pool. And we'll do that for a while until we feel like we have sufficient vendors, and we're talking, it's quite a bit of vendors. And they're usually discount pricing so that we can look at their catalogs and see what discount one vendor offers versus a different vendor, so we can call them from pricing and see who we can get the best deal from. So it is something that we present to the board that we do about every 4 years is when we release something and bring them to the board.
It is pretty comprehensive. There are a lot of vendors here. Do we track, just for our own sake, how many of the vendors actually engage with the district that do business with us?
I couldn't tell you that we do that specifically, but I can tell you that if they're on here, our schools and departments use a lot of these vendors, and they're always they're always trying to get the best value that they can, so they're always shopping for that. So, but I couldn't specifically tell you right now off the top of my head that, which ones get the most.
Now, is there a dollar threshold, anything under 50,000, over 50,000? Does it matter?
No. As a matter of fact, the board policy states that once you all approve this particular vendor pool, because it's a Judson ISD solicitation, our departments and campuses can purchase from these vendors at any time for any amount of money. As long as they have it budgeted, then they can purchase from them. They have to go through our process, obviously, to get all the approvals and everything, but yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Eaton?
This particular list of vendors, are these all new for this upcoming school year?
No. A lot of these vendors have done business with us in the past. There are some new ones in here. And that just depends on who wants to respond. What our experience is that anybody who was on the list before typically responds again to get on the list. And then we have anybody who didn't have the ability because maybe it's a new business that was created after the last time that we closed the process, that
Right.
they're now responding so they can get on our approved vendor list.
Okay, so if there's somebody that I'm thinking about that was on here before and they're not here, then they're no longer authorized to order from them?
If they don't reply to this solicitation within the next few months, then at some point we will not be able to do business with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, if no further discussion, we'll proceed to voting on 4G. Motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to 4H. Consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-40 for healthcare benefits administrator.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Canoyer, second, Mr. Macias, and I believe Ms. Rodriguez and Ms. Pashal both pulled this. So let me go to discussion. Okay, perfect.
Okay, so a quick question, who have we been using up until now?
We have been using Alamo, it's a company called, their parent company is called Brown and Brown Insurance, but they're doing business here locally as Alamo Insurance.
Okay. And do they, what has been like the satisfaction rate from employees with this service provider, or do they interact with them at all?
They do interact with them to some degree. A lot of the employees contact us directly because we have our own benefits department in the school district. The people that work more directly with the broker are our employees in that department. However, during open enrollment, when when they're trying to initially sign up, Alamo Insurance and their representatives are out meeting with every one of our employees and explaining the benefits together with our employees and helping them enroll in the products from our whatever insurance carrier that we select. This year was Aetna insurance carrier. And then that particular broker brings in a lot of other companies that do the vision and the dental and things like that. So they work with them at that point. The other time when they get involved is if there is an issue, they, like I said, we try to get them to work through us and we try to help them. But if on occasion, they may have to work with the person that in Alamo Insurance that works with us to kind of, if there's an issue with the insurance company and we're really having a serious dispute as to something on occasion, but that's rare. Usually they work with us, and we're the ones who work our employees with our benefits department, with our insurance broker.
I have one last question. Will there be any additional costs to employees that are incurred? It looks like we're saving money, but would there be, is that passed on to the employees, or?
Let me I'm gonna back up just a little bit to
Yeah.
kind of explain how this works. So the insurance administrator that we have here, this particular request for our proposal, is for the company that's going to help us enroll our employees in whatever health insurance product the board approves.
Okay.
So that's a separate bid that we will be bringing back at some point if we go out for bid. And it depends. We go out for bid whenever the renewal rates for the insurance products are above what we feel is affordable to our employees. Let's say we get an 8% increase in premiums, and we're like, well, that's too much. If there's a 2%, we may say, okay, well, that's fine, we can accept that. So if we go out for a bid, then we'll do a separate bid for that. These particular folks help us in evaluating those proposals that we get from the insurance companies. We do the bid, we get responses back, we evaluate, they help us in evaluating when we're doing the actual design of the plan, how much is it gonna cost for this or that, whatever. We use them as consultants to help us, to guide us. Should we, how is our group doing? Are we spending more in this area or in this area? How should we structure our plan to make sure that the premiums that we're being charged are affordable to our employees? Now, sometimes the benefits, I'm getting off track here, so I'm gonna back up a little bit. So that, we use them for that. They also provide our employees, like I said a little while ago, with all the other products like life insurance and dental insurance and vision and cancer and those other policies. So they go out and look for those particular products, and we don't get involved in that as much. We do get a little bit involved, but not as much, because those products are not paid with school district dollars. They're paid with employee dollars. So our involvement is to make sure that we're getting a good product for a good value for our employees. But it's not really a request for proposal that we solicit from the school district. We do the big health insurance one because we contribute a lot as a school district for those particular products. Right now, our contribution is $355 per employee per month for that, so it adds up a lot. We also have done an RFP for life insurance because we're paying over $50,000 from district monies for that product. So beyond that, that's what we're using for it. Now, we currently have other companies that we use, like for instance, we have a lot of employees that have annuities, 403Bs, the 457 plan. So we use another company that we send them, they help us manage that program. So they're called a third-party administrator. And so when an employee wants to go to a broker, let's say, just as an example, Fidelity or American Express or American Funds, they'll go to the broker and say, I want to have an annuity with you, and that broker works with this third-party administrator to make sure everything's okay. They sign a salary reduction agreement, and they send it to us. And then we start deducting money from the paychecks of those employees, and we send it back to that company, and then they distribute that money back to all the different companies that we have, and there are a lot of brokers out there. Well, right now, we're paying for those services. So the company that we're recommending, they're going to pick up the charge for that. We're not going to be charged that anymore, and it's about $20,000 a year approximately for that. We also have another program that's called the flexible spending accounts. And what it is that we have employees that, again, contribute for unreimbursed medical or for dependent care, and that company that administers that program also charges us for cutting checks and managing all that, and it's about $20,000 as well on average per year. And then we have a third company that does our COBRA administration. So when employees leave, we have to send them out by law we have timelines we have to follow, notifying them of their ability to continue their coverages that they have, but they have to pay it out of pocket and things like that. To do that as well, it's another $20,000 a year approximately. So altogether, it's $60,000. The company that we're recommending, they have a third-party administration license, and so their parent company, so they are going to be able to provide those services at us without charging the school district for those. So we're estimating a $60,000 a year savings by moving to that vendor. That's just one of the reasons that we selected them for those services that we are now paying for.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Michelle.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm going to request that I'm not going to support this particular item because of the discrepancies in the ranking. So I'm just making clear that I'm not going to support this item. As a matter of fact, yeah, I'm not going to support this item.
I had some concerns as well, Ms. Michelle, regarding the rankings as well, but you let me know if we were on the same page, because I would like to know what your concerns were. But in looking at this ranking for healthcare benefits, one thing came out to me that I found intriguing. Obviously, we are familiar with Alamo Insurance and their contributions to our foundation and history with the district. But when I look at the scorecard for this, the other three vendors and the four that were evaluated all scored higher than the Alamo Insurance. Alamo had 4, the other 3 had 5. And so I'm not too familiar with any past relationship. Now, mind you, it's only one indicator, but it was a big one when I noticed that Alamo Insurance was a 4. So then I started looking at this a little bit closer, and the thing that sort of concerned me as well was the quality of references provided. And so U.S. Employee Benefit Service, which scored the highest, had a perfect 10, and that's good. But it made me start to wonder. We've been using Alamo Insurance, and we know that employees aren't completely satisfied. It's not the fault of anyone. That's just insurance these days. But I wonder if Alamo Insurance was enabled to kind of find out what some of the issues were so they could address them. And it just really, like I said, a whole bunch of questions came up. So I'm just not too sure. Now, it's interesting to me, though, that U.S. Employee Benefit Services did score a perfect 100 on the evaluation, but I think the rationale included pricing. I think there was something in the procurement document that was in the memorandum that stated that it made them more competitive. But when it came to points, everyone was at 0. So there was no differential given to U.S. employee group for that. But yet they scored perfect score. So I know this is a difficult thing to do, and I mean process-wise, but we as a board have to provide some oversight and really make this process as equitable as possible. And so I guess if you can give me some rationale, whomever put this together, in terms of first the vendor's past relationship, if there were issues, talk to me a little bit about that. And then secondly, why all the other vendors, and maybe we do have history, that's why I want clarity. They scored perfect 5s, which is, I think, is a 1 out of 5. What that looked like. We'll start there.
Sure. That particular criteria, the way that works is that we award any vendor who proposes 5 points. They start off with 5. So the only time they get deducted is if we are currently using that vendor and we have some concerns about their relationship with us, their performance with us. And so your question, there's a couple things I want to address. First of all, when we evaluate these particular proposers, whether it's this or anything else, because companies make contributions to the school district is not a criteria that we consider. We're not allowed to do that. So that comment about, they consider to the foundation stuff, we don't even pay attention to that, because if not, we would get in a situation where vendors could come in and start buying our business, and it's illegal. We're going to get into illegal issues, and we don't want to. So we just stay completely away from that. That's why you don't see it on the scorecard. The reason that particular company was marked down is because we have had, and let me make something clear. The 2 gentlemen that y'all deal with and I deal with on occasion, great people, have nothing against them. We have a great relationship. A personal relationship as far as work. I mean, I don't have a personal relationship out of here. That sounded wrong. But the problem is that one of the main things is that we have the online enrollment system that we were explaining to you about that they use to enroll our employees. We've had a number of years, we've had issues with those systems, and we've had meetings with them. And while they have tried to correct it, we have continued to have issues with their systems. And it's not their particularly owned, that they don't own the system. It's a third-party person that they contract with to provide that service. Well, in this particular proposal, they were proposing to change it to a different vendor. And they did a demonstration and everything of the system. But the reason they were marked, and that particular item was scored somewhere else, but that particular reason, the reason they lost a point was that because we've had issues with their particular enrollment system in the past, and that's why they lost a point.
Okay, that makes some sense. I appreciate that thoroughness on that. I guess the question I had is, you said we've engaged in trying to take corrective measures to ensure that we can move forward in a more effective manner, and that had been exercised?
Yes, sir. We've actually been to their offices, and they have invited the president, owner of the third-party company that they had engaged with to come visit with us and say, hey, look, these are the issues they're having, what's going on. And they were trying to address them, and to some degree they would, but then they would change staff at that particular company. The new people would come in and they wouldn't realize what they're supposed to be doing as far as what our needs were. So it was kind of like starting all over again and saying, well, you're not giving us the proper information, we're having issues. So then our IT people would have to get involved in a heavier just spending more time on our resources on trying to get this to work and trying to re-explain what we needed. And we did that on two different occasions over the past 3 years, trying to say, hey, we really need to get this thing to work right. And as of last, I think it was in August or so, from my understanding, what I was told, that company sold to a different person now, or a different company, so they were going to start all over again. And so when this particular, when Alamo proposed, they brought in a completely different vendor with a whole different software to start off, and we were like, well, that's fine. And we evaluated it. Like I said, it's in a different section here. But we didn't feel that software was as user-friendly as the company that we are recommending.
Well, good. And I guess when I look at criteria 2 and 3, where we talk about reputation of the vendor, and the quality of vendors' goods or services, would that, you'd say the 8 they scored be reflective of those past concerns or those current concerns you had mentioned?
It is a part of that. It also has to do with the references. When we contact some of the references that they listed, beyond what our personal experiences and what they're saying as well, it did affect that scoring as well, yes, sir.
Okay. And you know, this process is supposed to carry out this way, and the board is always going to be, or should always ask how this process went through. I certainly want the best product for our employees. And then the other thing I had in regards to the U.S. Employee Benefits Group, are there offices here in San Antonio?
They have an office in New Braunfels, and if you're interested, there are representatives here from that company. If you have any questions for them specifically that you don't see here, if you'd like to meet them, they're here as well in the audience.
So in terms of one other thing that I've known, there's been some challenges. When we bid out, or when the administrator bids this service for whoever we end up using, Blue Shield or so on, do you think perhaps U.S. Employee Benefits will have an ability to negotiate stronger pricing?
They're a large company as well, but what it really comes down to, while that may play a little bit into it, what it really comes down to is the utilization of our group. If we have a lot of utilization of the plan, it definitely determines what our premiums are going to be by the insurance companies. While, like I said, they do have a little bit of communication in that, the key is our utilization and the design. How much benefit do we want? Because the more benefits we want, the more lucrative or richer of a plan, the more it's going to cost our employees. So those are the key factors. As long as the companies that we're looking for or to help us with that have a good communication relationship with these insurance carriers, because insurance carriers are going to work with whoever we assign as a broker. It doesn't matter to them. As long as, they're going to assign whoever we want to work with. So to answer your question, I don't think that's going to have a big influence. I think the bigger influence is our utilization of our employees and how much are using the plan. How much is it costing? If we're paying $14 million in premiums a year and our employees are using $16 million in premium, in claims, then the insurance company is going to say, hey, we're losing money here. We need to charge more. And that's really the key to what's happening.
Thank you.
I don't like the way this is rated, period. I don't. I mean, it don't seem like it's fair. The new company, you give them all the way across the board 10s. Have you checked their backgrounds?
Yes, sir. That's part of the due diligence that we do. We check references. We check with other districts that are being used by them currently, other school districts. We ensure that they have at least one client, if not more, that is the same size or close to the size of the group that we have to make sure. We look at how long they've been with those clients. Are they just a 1 or 2 year, or are they there 20 and 30 years as some of their clients, as they are with some of the other school districts. So yes, we do. The last thing we want, our job is to make sure that y'all don't get questions from our employees about, hey, who's this terrible company that y'all hired to come help us? We want to because it reflects on us and reflects on y'all. So our job is to make sure that we vet all these vendors that, I don't care what service they're going to provide for us, that we vet them to make sure if we're recommending them for the school district, that they're going to provide what we feel is a superior product for our employees, superior service for our employees. If we don't think that, then we would not recommend them. So yes, we definitely vet them, because the last thing I want is for either one of y'all to come back to me and say, hey, you recommended this firm and they're doing a terrible job. I'm getting complaints from the employees left and right, because that's going to make me look bad, and that's not ever my intent. Or anybody that works in our departments doing that. Our goal is never to hire somebody that we think is going to provide less service than what we're currently receiving. Our goal is always to improve all the time.
Well, I won't support it until I think it's a fair deal.
I can respect that. I don't. Okay.
Thank you, Madam President. Dr. Montoya, I'm looking at the detailed scorecard on page 135, and item number 5, vendors' past relationship. In the detail, I highlighted something that I do not understand, and I need explanation on how this is quantified or justifiable. It says, if they have not done business with the district they must be given the benefit of the doubt. How do you rank? How is that justifiable, sir? That it looks as if that is left up to interpretation.
And again, Jose, if you want to, because the numbers are definitely a little bit different there.
Sure. For that item, as you can tell, we had 4 proposers. Every one of the proposers received 5 points, except for our current company that we're using right now. The reason for that is we want to make sure that if we have first of all, we're not going to penalize somebody who proposes to the school district, and this is the same question that Mr. Macias asked a little bit ago. We're not going to penalize anybody that proposes to the school district that has never done business with us before, with Judson ISD. However, if you're a vendor that has done business with Judson ISD, and we were not totally satisfied with your past experience, we're going to ding you. And how unsatisfied we are is how many points we're going to ding you. Truthfully, when I looked at this and reviewed it, I felt that maybe we were a little bit generous, but it's still, the end result still bore what the end result was going to bear. And that is, we still feel like we're selected the best company from who proposed for the services that we're looking for our employees. So I don't know if that answers your question, but anybody who solicits business from the school district is going to you're going to get a 5. The only reason you're going to get counted off is if you've done business with the district before and we were not satisfied with your services.
Thank you. I'm excited that we have somebody who's going to be able to handle all these extra concerns that we have with our employees in terms of COBRA, 403B, the flexible spending accounts. It seems to me that it will be much easier for our benefits department to work with one particular group rather than 3, 4, maybe 5 that are handling those things. But what really excites me is the fact that they're saying they're going to provide a full-time staff member who will be housed here at the district office. Now, may I address Mr. Elizondo?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Elizondo, does that mean that that person will be here to help the benefits department also deal with any issues that may come up with the home office as well? When you said perhaps the difficulties we had previous with the enrollment software, so that would be a person who could troubleshoot, who would be here?
Yes, they're here for anything that we need them for, from picking up whenever we have an employee that calls and asks questions about their coverage. They're here to help our employees. They're here to help us with enrolling people if we need them to enroll during our new employee orientations and things like that. And yes, if we have issues with any one of these third-party administrators, they're going to answer them a lot faster than they're going to answer us because they're all in the same company. So yes, they're to help us with anything that we need. And one of the things that I don't think we included in there, is that they also reconcile our bills. Right now, we have a staff member who spends a good amount of her time taking our deduction registers from our payroll, looking at what the insurance company is charging us, and reconciling those to make sure that, hey, are we being charged correctly for this employee? And did we miss a premium or not? Well, this particular insurance agent also is going to do that in their office. They're going to reconcile those for us and just bring us the errors, if you will, the discrepancies, and say, so that's going to save us a lot of time as well. And that, we didn't put that in there necessarily, but that's another benefit of the, and actually we may have put it in there, I don't remember exactly, but that's also another benefit that they're going to provide for the district.
Thank you. And I also, as I look at the rankings and the total scores, there is a pretty good-sized discrepancy between our number 1 pick, which is the U.S. Employee Benefits Services Group, and the next one, and then even further for those. So I will be supporting your recommendation. I called earlier with my questions, and I had very similar questions to Mr. Macias and Ms. Pichon. I have the unique situation of having been an employee under U.S. Employee Benefit Service Group and Alamo Insurance, so I have a little bit different view. And as an employee, you know, when you go to a new district and you're like, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? Why don't we have an HSA? Why do we only have an FSA? And then I realized when we went out for an RFP in where I work, it's all in what you ask for. And so you have to request from your benefits administrator what you want. And who ends up paying for that? Well, it's the employee. I pay for my HSA. I pay for if I want an FSA or whatever I need. I mean, that comes out of the employee's pay. But my question is regarding the references. Can you tell me who were the references that we contacted for U.S. employee benefits?
I'm going to ask Ms. Moose to come up for a minute.
Okay.
To specify that for you.
Sure.
Sorry, Ms. Moose is the Director of our Employee Services Department.
Good afternoon. Yes, we called the recent ones that we had, and also the part you didn't see in here was we also requested 3 of, if they would list the people that no longer did business with the companies. And so the ones that we did contact for U.S. employee benefits was, and I hope I get these all straight because I didn't write them down and I apologize, and I can get that list for you, sure, but we called Comal. I'm trying to think who else we called. We called, because we had some of them we called in duplicate, because we called Poteet.
Who did you speak with in Poteet?
Amanda.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, now we talked about other, because they were
That's a lot.
listed under another vendor we had. And so we didn't really talk too much about the U.S. employee benefits, but we did talk to
Okay,
her
but for
about-
U.S. employee
Yes.
benefits, who were the references
Yes,
that you
and
called?
then we talked to a lady at Hayes, CISD.
So Comal and Hayes?
Yes.
And then how about, but Poteet was not for U.S. She said it was for Alamo, correct?
Yeah, but we had we were fortunate enough when we had references that they did business with a vendor and a current one, and they met, while we were talking and asking them about the current one, they were able to say, yes, we did business with them, and we also asked them about that sometimes. So we did use one reference for 2 things sometimes.
Okay, so for U.S. employee benefits, we called Hayes and Comal.
Yes.
And for Alamo?
At Alamo, we called Harlandale. We called, we had ourselves, obviously, but I tried to call, and I had like 2 or 3 calls from, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the district because I don't know it, and she never returned my call. And I'm trying to think who else. Oh, gosh, I just can't remember the names of the districts. I apologize. I wasn't prepared
Okay,
for that question.
and I'm referencing item number 2 on the rubric that says, do we value the quality of the references provided? And Alamo received a 10, so you value Hayes Consolidated and Comal.
Yes.
But Harlandale, we really didn't value the quality of the references. We gave them an 8. And then whoever else you can't remember.
Yeah, well, what happened is what they said, because the quality of the reference and what they said for what they did compared to what their actual services that they provided. Because some of them were find references, and some of them were references that they didn't list, but they did comment on that. So the part that they did get hit on was we asked them about who they currently had, what they liked, and the ones that didn't use them anymore, if they would go back to them regarding the situation and why they were lost. And so those things were all considered in that evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
So does U.S. Benefits do business with any other school districts in the surrounding area besides Hayes and Comal? Because those are
They-
further out.
I don't know about the surrounding area. I know they do Pflugerville, who's a larger district, closer to our size. If you like, like I said, the representatives over here, they can come and answer that question if you like.
And the only other question I had was the person that's going to be helping our benefits administrator that'll be on site, that's included in the cost that we're paying. We're not paying another employee.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
We'll move on to 4I. Consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of architectural firms related to RFQ 16-07, architectural services for services related to the construction of Veterans Memorial High School Phase 2. I need a motion.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Ms. Pashal. And I believe, Mr. Macias, you pulled the item.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'd like to I guess, discuss the process of selecting the architect. And I was a little disappointed, I'll tell you, because this particular item, there's no backup document. It's
Emailed to us.
was it? Oh, man, I've been so busy. Okay, so is it in my packet as well? Okay, so talk to me a little bit about that, because I obviously didn't read my emails. So is this it right here? Yes. So this was sent via email? My apologies then for not getting that. So when we look at this firm ranking, there are 5 firms that were ranked, and are we selecting the number 1 firm or all of them?
There were,
what you're doing is you're approving the ranking. So what happens is if the board approves the ranking, then we will negotiate with the top ranked firm, and which in this case is PBK. And if we can negotiate an appropriate percentage for the work that we feel is fair, then we will execute a contract, and they'll be the ones designing the final phase of that school.
Okay. I guess it does state in the rationale, I thought I saw a price, but I guess, is it in the document that, how much money are we talking about?
There is an estimate. We don't have a set price, because what happens is we negotiate a commission, a percentage that we're going to be charging, or that they're going to charge us for the design work, and then it'll be a percentage that is applied to the construction cost. So once we have the actual construction cost of the project, which will be later when it's bid out, then that percentage is applied to that to determine what the architect will get paid for their design work.
Okay, and just so, since we're here in session, the timeline for this to begin and end would be, what are we looking at for this phase?
this is supposed to be in phases, sir, so it won't be a start and end, and then we open everything. We'll probably start with the academic buildings, go to the athletic fields, and then we have the auditorium as well.
Okay.
So they'll be introduced to the campus as they're completed, not necessarily all completed, then introduced.
All right. Thank you.
We'll move on to 4J, consider and take action regarding approving the rankings for engineering services related to RFQ 16-08, engineering services for material testing services for Escondido North Elementary School and Wortham Oaks Elementary School.
Second.
Motion, Mr. LaFoille, second, Mr. Macias, and I believe Ms. Pashal, you pulled this item.
I did. Thank you. Dr. Montoya, my question is, on page 145, I'm looking at the scorecard. I guess that's a scorecard. Under insurance claims, claims asserted against your, oh, that's a typo, within the last 5 years, and this ARIS place got a ding. So my question is, why would we consider somebody that got a ding on insurance claims?
Ms. Pashal?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Fields, go ahead.
Ms. Pashal, when we put in here, anytime a company gets an insurance claim against them, all claims against them aren't necessarily legitimate, but whether it's a legitimate claim or a frivolous claim, we still have to mark it in here. And it's just a yes or no. answer. We don't really attribute a lot of points to it unless we pull up a yes, and then there was a serious claim that was, you can see in the background where there was shoddy work.
And what did you consider when you saw it? Did you consider it frivolous or not?
We considered it, but we didn't consider it enough to take them out of the running, but they still weren't in the top 3.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
No further discussion, we'll move to vote. And we're voting on 4J. Okay, motion carries 7-0. We'll move on to 4K, consider and take action regarding approving the purchase of 3 14-passenger school buses.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, Ms. Canoyer, second, Mr. Macias, and I believe, Mr. Macias, you pulled this item.
Yes, just want to, I know we're approving the purchase of 3 40. We did a budget amendment of $1 million or 1.2 a few months ago, 1.5. So we needed 3 more buses. Were we short, or what is the need for this?
Sure. What happened is that we purchased 15 large, regular-sized school buses, and we do have a need for some shorter, the little smaller buses, because we have some issues sometimes when we have students, especially the special needs students that maybe live in a cul-de-sac, and then to get those buses in there and get them around is really difficult and sometimes dangerous. And so these buses will help us for that. It'll help us when we have to transport kids across town to a special program, or we're only going to need to transport 1 or 2 students instead of sending that big bus. We're going to send these smaller buses. We do have some other vehicles that we use sometimes, vans, like the regular passenger vans, but they're not as safe as one of these little buses. They're a little bit heavier, more. They look like, well, I think you all know what the short school buses look like. So that's the reason when we saw that we had a little bit of money left over, the Director of Transportation said, hey, we really could use this if the board will allow it. So we said, well, let's take it back to the board and see if they're okay with it, so they can buy these 3 buses.
Would, I think I've mentioned this in the past for discussion, but the lifespan for even these mini buses would be, is it 15 or 18 years?
It's the same as the large buses. They
Okay.
are pretty much equipped the same, yes, sir.
And I guess I would eventually like to see at some point us maybe just in 3 or 4, whatever, we go to another bond, maybe adding the acquisition of a fleet of buses to kind of put us ahead, so that we're not pulling from our budget for this. But I understand the rationale. I just wanted you to have it on record, and I see the 1.5 in the rationale, so thanks for explaining that. The other last part, just in relation to requiring new buses, has there been a review of our hazardous routes in terms of reintroducing buses under that 2-mile radius?
Yes, sir. As we get concerns made to the Transportation Department, we'll sit down and convene a committee to look over the hazardous route that came up as an area of concern. And if we deem it a hazardous route, then we assign a route to it. But we don't necessarily just arbitrarily go out and look at all of the areas. We wait for people to come in, express those concerns to us.
Ms. Eaton?
Actually, I just wanted to commend you for getting those buses. My special needs grandson, the issue that you just mentioned about the longer buses, I've had to personally stand and help guide this guy off the block to get him to be able to turn the corner. I've had to wake a neighbor up to get him to move his car because they were coming to pick up 2 kids. And so, yeah, this will work out a lot better. And also over at the shopping center, when they go to work at the little department store, they were having the same issue because they're taking 5 students over there or 7 students over there on this big bus. So it's also going to save the district money as far as using that bus for gas as opposed to using the smaller bus.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
How many small buses do we have now?
I don't know the exact amount. I could ask the transportation director to
Well,
come.
my other question is, you won't know that either then. How many miles on them?
I wouldn't know that, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you get that for me then?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 6-1, 6 yes and 1 abstention. We'll move on to 4L, consider and take action regarding approving, I'm sorry? Oh, consider and take action regarding approving secondary student fees and CTE-related student fees for the 2017-2018 school year.
Motion.
Motion, Ms. Canoyer, second, Ms. Rodriguez, and I believe, Ms. Canoyer, you pulled this item.
I did. I don't have questions about the fees per se, but when this came to me and I started looking at the athletic fees, I would just like to ask that the high schools be named correctly on the paper, please. That's all.
I saw that.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move to, oh, I'm sorry. Oops.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Rodriguez.
I was wondering, I noticed that some of the fees are really high. Band, for example, is $550. Do the band boosters help to offset that cost, or who am I asking? I don't even know.
Ms.
Thank you,
Barra,
thank
why
you.
don't you go ahead?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, they don't. A lot of it is done by the parents, and they do a lot of their own fundraisers.
Okay. So students who are not able to pay that fee, like if it's financially a barrier for their family, do they just not participate in
We-
band, or?
We do have some money set aside for some of
Okay.
those students that can't, but for the most part, we've had very little people asking for fund reimbursement.
Okay. But it is available if families
Yes,
need
it is available.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Barra,
Yes.
how different are these fees than last year's?
They're the same.
They're exactly the
They're
same?
exactly the
All right,
same,
that's
yes.
all I wanted to know. Thanks.
I had a sidebar going. On the uniforms, the band uniforms and the football uniforms, we're on a program with them, aren't we? We replace them so many years?
Every 7 years, yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yes, we
that
do.
you was- You were chewing on something, I'm sorry.
You're fine. No, yes, and Ms. Barra, I heard an echo and that's yes from over there.
Every 7 years, we have a band uniform replacement,
What about the football uniforms?
and the football is the same thing. and they
Same
try
thing
to-
with
yes, yes, sir.
basketball and all those little
Yes.
sports like that. Who's coming up next?
I don't have that information with me.
I'm sorry. Can you get it for me, please?
I sure will.
Thank you.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. And motion carries 7-0. Move on to item 4O, consider and take action regarding approving College Board's college readiness and success contract.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoille, and I believe, Mr. Macias, you pulled this item.
Yes, I really appreciate all the hard work that we do in secondary education and college readiness. But the contract, and again, forgive me, I do like to look at previous contracts to get an idea of any major changes, adjustments, but I did not have this in my portfolio of documents from previous board meetings. So tell me a little bit about this, Dr. Montoya, or anybody, what this looked like compared to what we've done in the past. Give me a starting point
Dr.
there.
Cantu, if you'd like to answer.
Yes, sir,
that.
I can address that. Mr. Macias, what you have on page 191, you have the budget schedule. And if you can turn to that page, I'll walk you through the pricing there. On page 191 in our board book, you'll see the SAT fixed fee with the essay, and you'll see the quantity column. And So what we're paying this year, the total cost, which is $161,235, that is an increase from last year of $12,950. And the reason for the increase is that College Board has raised the cost of the SAT. It's at $3 more per student, and the PSAT, it's $1 more per student. This is an annual contract, and these are services that we acquire every year. This is for the PSAT and SAT at all our high schools.
I think that's phenomenal. The actual contract itself, though, the other pages and regarding changes to enrollment, restriction, untested, or unused test, all of those paragraphs, any of that criteria changed compared to last year, or is it just standard?
No, sir, that's standard language.
Okay, so no changes. And so we're looking at a $12,000 increase. Dr. Montoya, looking at this initiative, just so that we're understanding the scope of our expenditure, if we could have a 3 or 4 year history on what we've paid in this, apples to apples, in terms of what that cost increase or decrease or what it's looked like.
We can create that chart, I think, for that time period and share it with the whole board.
A 3-year comparison?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no further discussion, we'll proceed to vote. Motion carries 7-0. The rest of them, we have to vote on. We're going to move to 5, discussion and consideration of action items. 5A, consider and take possible action regarding approving a nomination of a member of the local board to fill a position on the Texas Association of School Boards, TASB Board of Directors.
Motion.
Second. Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Ms. Pashal. And I put that item on there. If anybody would like to be, or would like to nominate, and if not, Rolinda Schmidt from Kerrville ISD will be seeking re-election. Any discussion? Ms. Schmidt. Rolinda Schmidt is seeking re-election. Okay, we're good? All right. There's no discussion. We'll proceed to vote. To keep Rolinda Schmidt? Is that right? Okay. Yes.
Yes, for her.
To support her and not nominate someone else?
That is correct. We're approving the nomination of Rolinda Schmidt to serve as her. Your turn. Try it again, yes, try yes again. Try yes. Or if you voted yes, I don't know what you voted. Okay, motion carries 7-0. We are going to skip 5B because we'll do that in closed session. 5C, consider and take possible action regarding approving changing Title I funding allocation.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Macias, second, Mr. LaFoille. Mr. Macias.
Yes, thank you. I put this on the agenda really just to kind of get that discussion, but I thought if we're going to discuss it, let's figure out if we want to take action. So looking at the last couple of meetings, we've had a discussion about title funding. And so one of the questions that I've been asking around is to explain, well, and I think it's already been answered, so I won't rehash it, but the rationale of not providing Wagner High School with any title funding. I think the emphasis was given that we want to support K through 5 or even K through 8 in terms of giving greater allocations of title funding. I can appreciate that strategy. I think it's a sound one. My concern, though, was that looking at the percentages that were provided, that I think 61% is the threshold where economically disadvantaged students, then that campus would qualify for title funding.
63.13.
63.13.
And we can go down 2 percentage points, or we can go up to.
So 61 is the
Yes. the
okay. So I guess what concerned me was the Masters Elementary School would actually, based on the new format, they're at 59%. They would fall off of any title support in the next academic year. And it's not something like, if we were to see an increased enrollment of economically disadvantaged students there, to put them up at 61 or even 62% during the year, they're still not going to get any support that academic year.
Correct, because we do have to pick a date as
Sure.
to when we're going to select the date for enrollment.
I would like to lower that threshold to 59%, or even say 60%. 60%, because we still can go down to 2. What I'd like to do is ensure that masters and their students still get the support that they need, because as we evaluate the efficiencies of title spending, we're not sure how detrimental that would be to nearly 60% of the children on that campus that were once receiving title support and are no longer going to receive that support. So it's just real close. I think of all the schools, please remind me, Masters was the closest one to that 61% threshold, correct?
The two other schools that would qualify if we do lower the number would be Coronado Village and Copperfield Elementary as well.
And where is Coronado and Copperfield?
Coronado is at 57.66.
Mhm.
And then the other one would be Copperfield at 54.10.
That's a little, what I'm suggesting is that we move it to 60%. And so if you go down to 58% would then be the new threshold, which,
But then you're 1 point away.
yeah,
to
exactly.
Coronado Village, and so that's how we keep
That's
on
how I
going.
feel about Masters. We're still at almost at 60% point. So, but 54% at Copperfield, that's a bigger jump. I know we can't give all our campuses title funding, but certainly a little concerned about Masters.
Okay, so just Masters and not Wagner? Are you leaving Wagner out?
Yeah, no, I understand the rationale. I support the ideology that we need to keep that funding in elementary and middle schools. But I do want to revisit in our budget discussions, adding more support to Wagner High School. But that's a whole separate state comp ed money, whatever we need to do.
One of the things that I do want to make you aware of, Mr. Macias, is that we just received some notice that our funding for Title I for next year has gone down by about $222,000. And we've also been told that we have.
By how much?
About $222,000.
Okay.
Did I say the right numbers this time? Good. And also.
This is from the U.S. Department of
From
Ed
the US
that has
Department of-
notified
yes,
all
yes, sir.
districts, including Judson, that they're cutting some of the title funding sources down.
And in addition to that, we also have to provide funding to the local charter schools or private schools. And to date, this past week, we've talked to 5 of those organizations, and they all have requested. In the past, they've declined title funds from us, but this time, 5 of them have accepted Title I services. So we have to provide that amount of money to them before we even take off money for the top 30% for our district.
Well, as you can tell, being efficient with title funding is absolutely critical.
You are
We
correct.
cannot be throwing money out the door because it's leaving us. But it still doesn't address the potential deficiencies that Masters Elementary will encounter. Again, we can't save, I don't want to say save, because we will do things, I believe this board will, to ensure, and administration, and our teachers, to help all our kids. But with a school like Masters that was already receiving the funding, with its proximity to that threshold already, I think at this point, it may be detrimental to take that funding out now.
One of the things, Mr. Macias, is that affects the money that they receive is by the number of applications that they get at
Sure.
the very beginning of the year. And so it behooves the principal to go out and really get the students to submit those applications, those forms. And when the previous principal was there, she was asking the very same thing that you're doing. I think she missed it by 1%. So the following year, she made a very focused attempt to get those applications in, and she qualified. So I'm sure that could happen at other campuses, and the only thing, and I totally agree with you in that Masters should be getting some assistance, and we definitely can provide assistance to them through state comp eds. But right now, for this year, after we've started, it would be a little bit difficult unless the whole board says that they do want to go that route and I will certainly respect that. But right now, we've already submitted all our information to the federal government, letting them know which schools we are supporting and how we're supporting those schools as well.
What was, how much title money was Masters receiving specifically?
I think I was getting to. Masters was getting a total of 122,963.
And if you were looking at the strategy of doing state comp ed money, how much realistically would we be able to put to offset some of this?
You know, I hate to put dirty laundry out there, Mr. Macias, but I'm going to tell you that a lot of that money was not spent by Masters last year.
I understand. And so we need to be doing a better job of ensuring that money is spent, because I can't imagine why it wasn't. If we have money and we're leaving it on the table, I mean, that's just not to condemn or judge, but we just need to be better stewards of all our resources. So if Masters left state comp ed money, how many of our other campuses left state comp ed money?
If Masters,
You said Masters left, didn't spend all their title or state comp ed? Which one?
title,
It didn't spend all of its title money.
Correct.
So of the 122,000, how much was left?
I don't have that number with me, but I can tell you, because we
Okay.
give every campus every month their balance, and we encourage them to spend the money.
Sure. I'd like to just ask probably how much title money
I
is
can
left
get
on
you
the
that
table.
information for you, Dr.
I mean,
Esposito.
collectively across the district, just so we know what we could do possibly with that.
I can do
Now,
that.
now, if that money was unused, is there a point where we can reallocate that funding to a campus for support? I'll give you a hypothetical, just so you understand what I'm saying. Say we know in January that the way that it's tracking, we have 400,000 in total title money that's not going to potentially be used. Do we alert the principals, or do we just, I mean, can we pull the trigger and go put
We
somewhere
start
else?
alerting the principals early in January. Be sure you spend your money. You have 70% unspent money. February, you have 70 again. March, you have 60. By April, we collect that money, and then we have a conversation with Mr. Elizondo, who brings our director for title funds, and myself, and then starts questioning why we have so much money left on the table. And so, I mean, and I understand that. And even though, I mean, we can't just go out and then spend the money on anything just to spend the money, because it has to be used on the students this year. And so, right now, we're using those funds that were not spent by the campuses for summer school programs for our students.
Well, and I think that's fantastic. I mean, obviously, we would look at a portfolio of potential programs like additional tutoring, and things like that that we could probably use in a 2 or 3 month cycle if we have unspent money. But to come to us and say, hey, we didn't spend it all, that's just, we just need to do a better job of using those funds. So I would be really interested to know, again, what that shortfall was in title funding for not only Masters, but all of the schools that are under title.
I can get
And that way I get
information to all of you.
a better idea. Going back to state comp ed, do we have that same issue with those funds as well? Are they unused?
Actually, most of the schools have spent, especially those schools that receive that money, because it's a little bit of money, they spend all of that. We're at almost 0% on those campuses using those monies.
Well, those are really good things to hear. I want to make sure that we're not leaving Masters with its economically disadvantaged population in a dilemma, because that 1% or 2% where they lack, it could have simply been they didn't get enough forms turned in. I mean, if that's what it comes down to, the reality is we have the appropriate threshold of students that need support. But again, with incomplete information, it's hard to make a complete decision on this. Well, at this point, I don't have anything to say. I'll pull this item. We don't have to vote on it and get more additional information on this, if that's okay with my
All
colleagues.
right, then I'll withdraw mine.
Okay.
I'd still like to comment.
Okay. Ms. Canoyer-
Absolutely.
Ms.
Let me
Canoyer
see,
would
let me
still like
see.
to comment.
Let me see who's next. Hold on, Ms. Canoyer.
Thank you. Dr. Montoya, may I address Ms. Barra?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Barra, is it would it be accurate to say that this happens not infrequently, that campuses will move on and off of title funding depending on, from year to year?
Yes,
And when they move off of being allowed title funding, we compensate with state compensatory funds?
correct.
When we talk about the funds that are left, as you say, on the table, are there instances where principals have put in requests for funds that have been denied?
Yes, and a lot of the times, they will put in a request for a summer program that they want at their campus, and most of the time, we will fund that program for their own campus.
I've heard from several principals that they've been a little frustrated with having, because principals talk to each other as well. One principal will submit something and it's funded, another principal will submit the same thing and it's denied. So I would ask that we look and make sure that we are treating every campus equally and that there aren't any
If there's
discrepancies in the types of programs that are being allowed at one campus versus another campus.
I definitely would like to know that, because I always sit with my director on, every 2 weeks, we sit down and we go over all the records. And if that is happening, I'd like to talk to her about it.
Okay, thank you.
Are you allowed to share, Ms. Vera, what the charters and private schools were that requested title funds from us?
I don't have it right with me, but yes, I know, let me see, I didn't bring that memo with me.
It says on the first page.
I didn't get them.
We got it last week.
Did y'all get it? There's 5 schools right now, and we still have some others that are pending that we'll continue visiting this week.
You want to speak? Okay, Ms. Bichon.
Dr. Montoya, may I address Ms. Betta? Ms. Betta, I think you already answered the question that Mr. Macias was asking, but just for clarification, when you include more schools in the title funding, tell me how that affects the funding to the other schools.
It definitely lowers the amount that we give. We do have a priority priority poverty level, and they get a certain percentage, and then we go to the next tier. But yes, it does lower the amount.
Okay, again, this is a monthly update, basically tied to the bond funding. Dr. Fields, if you'd share where we're at on that issue.
Yes, sir. We provided the construction update, but in an effort to provide a better service, we also, Mr. Valdez put together a Excel document that describes where we are in these particular projects. And at the top, you'll see the headings. One says pending board action, and that basically means that requires board action like we had tonight for ranking or received bids. In design, which is the design professionals are in the process of generating the blueprints to get it done. Or in the bidding process, where JISD is soliciting and accepting contractors' proposals. Or in the requisition process, and that's when we're coordinating with the contractors, the agreement, the budget codes, or trying to get a purchase order out. In construction, the projects is being built in accordance with the blueprint, and then completed is just completion of the project. So as we list all of these in the construction report, we'll now place them on this Excel document so you can see where we're at on each one. In addition, Mr. LaFoyle said that he would like to see start and end dates on these, so we'll be providing that to you as well on each of the projects, when we plan to start and when we plan to end on each one. Any questions? Thank you.
I did, I pushed it. Just, Dr. Fields, I have a list of the bond projects that were passed, and I think it was given to the board back then. I wondered if you're able to provide that to the board now, that same list, because it's very helpful for me to look at the project and the scope and tell the community, hey, this is what was on the agenda, so we can follow it. So just my request would be
Definitely,
to send it
definitely.
to all our new board members.
Yes.
Sorry, first reading of FEA local compulsory attendance. Do you have anything, Dr. Montoya?
No, again, it's a first reading, so if the board between now and literally the next month, the second reading, if you have any immediate questions, we can answer them now or later, you know.
Okay.
Well, is there anything that Mr. Gonzalez would like to share with us?
I don't know, Mr. Gonzalez, anything on that area
From
that
Tasby.
changes or modifies or something?
No, this is just the first reading for homeschool. It gives us the opportunity to document and ensure that if we determine that they are not being homeschooled, students aren't being homeschooled, that we can apply the attendance laws.
Thank you. We'll move on to 6C, first reading of FJ local student fundraising.
And again, first reading in this area of the local policy, if anybody has any immediate questions, or as you read it between now and next month, you can also ask us, and we'll try to answer that. Is there any major things there, Mr. Gonzalez?
Again, this is just a revision. It kind of summarizes what our allowances are and how to manage any fundraisers that occur. It also specifies that we are not to interrupt the instructional time when we go to have any fundraisers during the day.
I just have one question. Are these local first readings, are these posted on the website for everyone to see?
They are posted on the website.
Good. Where would those be located?
They're on the board website.
The board website?
When you go to the board website and you scroll down,
Yes.
they are
with
first
a
and
lot of
second
them.
reading.
Yes,
ma'am.
I've seen them. Okay, thank you. And we'll go to 6D, any updates on board advisory committees? No? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ms. Canoyer, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to ask if, once we're finished with the budget and all those meetings, if we could visit at a later meeting, setting up committees and making sure that we have an opportunity to participate in some committees. I think that would be very valuable use of our time once we're through this busy season.
Yes. Okay, anyone else? 6E, update on board training, conferences, events, and consider future agenda items, requests by board members. We have SLI starting tomorrow and Friday, so I think all the new members will be there. I will be there also, so Dr. Montoya will be there. Ms. Pichon.
Thank you. Dr. Montoya, I have requests for future agenda next month.
Okay.
We were all given, I don't remember when we were given this, but we were all given a list of JEF Foundation deposit detail.
Okay.
And I guess these are the top
Donations, right, from
yes.
companies.
So
Okay.
what I would like to have in addition to this, sir, would be what are they earning from the district? The earnings that
Even
these,
the interests, things like that.
and that each of these.
Okay. Yeah, we can get that for you and create a chart here shortly and send it to all the board.
Thank you. And then, I don't know where to put this, but my concern is for the number of items that we have on our agenda under consent.
Okay.
And this, just about this entire board book was all consent.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if either do we need to discuss having more than one meeting a month, or less things on the consent? Because we pulled so many of these consent items, they need to have been on discussion.
And again, a lot of these consent items happen right at the end of literally at the end of the school year. They're yearly, April, May, June, so you tend to have probably more now than you normally have throughout the year. That's just kind of a given. But at the same time, if the board wishes as a group to have another meeting just for that, that's okay too.
I don't necessarily want to have another meeting, but what I am saying is, we have had, well, there's not too many letters of the alphabet left.
We can try to spread, I guess, some of the consent items depending on when they come in. I don't know, Mr.
We can
Elizondo.
easily put them all under discussion action. They can do one at a time. It's simple, it's just a change of a cover sheet, and they can just go one at a time. It's simple to do.
How about when we review the agendas?
That's-
I can take responsibility. I'll take
I will
responsibility
too.
for all of these consent
'Cause we
items,
said
because
it
I
and I
did
didn't
approve
say
it.
anything.
That we look at them and really talk about which ones do we think might have discussion. And then we can just move those off so that we don't have, I certainly don't, I mean, I'm busy, we're all busy, but
Yeah.
I prefer not to have two
And
meetings.
I will take responsibility
No, but we
also,
can do
because
that. I
it was
think when
my
we do the
turn and I
agenda,
didn't.
Yeah, when
review them.
when we review the agenda, I'll make sure,
Okay.
and whichever board members with me
Some may
will,
come off and hopefully
Absolutely.
compact the numbers.
sure.
Thank you, sir. And then the last thing is, I really would like to know, and it may not necessarily need to be an agenda item, it might just be a report. But I really would like to know if there's a ways that there can be a report made of how many folks on these campuses, and including district office, that translate.
That can translate
That
materials.
translate and have to do that translation for the community when they come into the building.
So we may have to, maybe do a survey. And again, it goes to not only at the central office level, a translator that may do a document that goes across the district. I think that's one issue, but the other one is specifically at a campus, I think.
Yes, sir,
So-
because here's the deal. Those
Yeah, we
people
can
at
do
those
that.
campuses, they're
can
not
do
making the kind of money folks are
No,
at district
no.
office.
So
And
maybe
so-
Ms. Hernandez and some of that kind of falls, with some of that ESL and bilingual. We'll have to do a survey and see what we come up with on that one, so.
Thank you, that's all.
Yes, Mr. LaFoille.
And how many translators do we have in sign language?
Good question. I don't know. Everybody heard the question? Sign language?
We do have some in
anybody?
special ed, yes, we do.
We do have one.
And a parent can request it.
it.
Yes, a parent can request it, and we will provide a translator like for PTO meetings and for art meetings. So yes, we do provide services.
Now, do we compensate them? Do they get
Yeah,
a?
we do pay,
So we do
pay
pay.
very well.
Okay.
Say a parent walks in there, and knows nothing but sign language.
Usually, they ask ahead of time, and usually we know who the parents are that will be requesting those services, but if they will be requiring those services, they do let us know ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Macias?
Yes. I'm sorry if I'm coming in late. I did catch what Ms. Bashaw was stating about the agenda, and based on what Dr. Salinas has mentioned as well, I mean, this is our board agenda, and so at any point when we're talking with the superintendent, we can tell him, hey, these 5 items need to be in regular because they're of high interest to the community and our stakeholders. So, yeah, I was puzzled by the consistency of as many alphabets as you were mentioning of consent items. There is absolutely no impression or intention to just vote all consent and be on with it. There's a reason we need to have these discussions. So, Dr. Salinas, Renee, as you do the agenda meetings and so on, you certainly are under the authority to say, we move it all if we need to. But I concur, I just wanted to echo that on record too. Thank you.
And just one more point, and you made a very good point. Also, for the benefit of the community that does come to our meetings, for the benefit of the community that does come to our meetings, they don't get to see all the documents that we have. So, it's almost like a little disrespectful to them.
Anybody else? Okay. This board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act. 551.074, discussing personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, and also private consultation with the board's attorney. We will be discussing superintendent update on evaluation goals. And also, I'm going to include 4H for consultation with the attorney. Consider and take action regarding approving request for proposal 17-40 for healthcare benefits administrator. No final action, decision, or vote shall be taken while the board is in closed session. The time is now 8:39.